Hello guys, my name is Dmitry and today's video we will learn how to implement custom overlays by using Angular CDK, and in the end of this video you will have such a nice autocomplete search like what you can see right now on your screen, so stay here if you want to know how I implemented it. Also, this video is going to be the first one in the video series dedicated to Angular CDK, and a lot of really interesting topics are coming, and I'm going to cover literally everything what provides us this library, so I'm pretty sure you know what you have to do if you don't want to miss it. Subscribe to my channel. And we are getting started. So what we have here, I created completely new Angular app with the some basic layout which consists from only toolbar and this input. And now let's go to code. There is everything should be familiar to you. The one thing is that I created a theme for my component. More about theming you can learn from my video. The link should appear somewhere at the top. And here we have just our some basic layouting, and you can see that it's a completely empty app component. And what else? There is the module where I'm importing my module where I'm going to work actually, and in this module I am importing the required material component and my drop-down search component, which you can see here. There is the styles for these, really very basic stuff, and we will extend this in our video. The first thing you have to do is to implement overlay module, and we importing this here, and then we go to our template, and what we have to do is the first thing we have to create some template where our layout will be, our panel will be living. So this is gonna be the section. I will add some custom class and some shadows to this container, and we have to define this like connected overlay. So this is directive we should apply, and it has also property like origin. So our origin in this case is going to be our form field. So let's define this like CDK overlay origin. And now we have to somehow pass the reference from the origin to this connected overlay, right? So to do this, I have to use template reference. And here I want to really export only overlay origin, because that's what expect our CDK connected overlay directive. We don't need the template reference, but we need exactly this CDK overlay origin. And we will add this as the value parameter here. I will add some text to this, and let's save and check, and we see nothing. And actually that's expected behavior, because we should tell this CDK connected overlay that it should be open. So let's define it like true, and we can see that our panel is visible, and this is exactly what we wanted to have. Okay, let's go back to the code, and now I want to add some styling for our panel. So I will add some width, which is going to be the same like width of the input, and then some min height and some padding. Okay, now it looks much more better, and I want to add some background, and in our theming file I want to fetch the background of our theme and apply it to our panel. Okay, for now that's enough, and let's go to template. You see there we define just hard-coded true, and let's do it a little bit more dynamic. I want to first of all create the variable which called is panel visible, which is observable of boolean, and I want to have it true when our input is focused. So once we focus on our input, I want to show our panel, or if we blur or lose the focus, we hide our panel. To track our focus, I'm going to use the focus monitor. This is the service which is provided by CDK as well, and you can import this this module from Angular CDK A11Y. It is accessibility module, so I will import this in our component feature module, and here I am injecting this service. And this service really very powerful, and it allows you to detect also the origin of the focus. Was it programmatically, or it was the touch, because of touch on the screen, or it was because of click, and some and other types of focusing. Okay, let's have a look how to use this focus monitor. This service has one method called monitor, and this method requires one parameter, which is element, which we want to monitor. And let's get the reference to this element via viewChild, and it will be our mat input, and I will read element ref from it. Now I can copy this property and pass it as a parameter for our monitor, and yeah, I have to check the type. It's element ref, not mat input anymore. And now what I have to do, it's actually what returns this monitor method. It returns either the origin, which is string, or null if a focus was loosed. So if it's blur event, it will be null. So I want to use map operator, and if I receive some string, it will be true, so the panel will be visible. Or if I receive some null as example, it will be false, so it means that we want to hide our panel. So let's then copy our isPanel visible property and use async pipe to subscribe to our stream and unsubscribe if our component will be destroyed. Let's have a look. It looks fine. Now go to the browser and check if it works. And it doesn't work because, let's have a look, because cannot read property add-on list. And okay, I think I know what the issue is. It because we trying to access the viewChild in ng on init lifecycle hook when this viewChild doesn't exist at the moment. So there are two ways how we can make it work. Either we can put it into the ng after view init lifecycle hook, or we could use the static property and set it to true, which means that we want to resolve our viewChild before change detection runs. So I will choose this second option, and now if we focus on our input, we see our panel and we hide it when we lose the focus. But it's not really behavior that we want to have in the end. We want to have something like if I focus on the input, I see the panel. Once I click on the panel, I still have to see it because probably we want to interact with some elements on this panel. And once we click somewhere outside, it should disappear. So let's go back to our code and let's think about how we're going to implement this. And I would like to have something like maybe two streams. The first one will be responsible for events when we have to show our panel, right? And the second stream will be responsible when we have to hide it. And then I want to have the third stream, which actually combines these two into one using some merge operator. And then we will use this stream in the end in our template, right? So let's implement this. And the first thing I want to do is make our isPanel visible stream emits only focus event. So we will filter out value null from this stream and map it to true. So we know that everything which everything what happens in this stream, this means that it will be show panel event. So we have to map it to true. Great. Now if we see how it works, we focus on it, but we of course cannot hide it because we ignore blur event for the moment. So I can click everywhere, but it doesn't disappear. So the second thing I want to do before to create another stream, I want to actually first in template, I want to say that our overlay has to have backdrop, and I'll do this by adding the property connected overlay has backdrop. It means that we'll add some extra layer below our panel, right? And now in dropdown search, what I want to do is to get reference to our overlay actually, and I will do it the same way how I did it for mat input. So I'm using viewChild and get the reference to our connected overlay. Now I'm creating the private property is panel hidden, which we remember is responsible for emitting events when we have to hide our panel, right? And I will put our is panel visible next to it. Do it also private, and I will add our third property, which is show panel, which in the end will be combination of our two streams, and we will use this property in our template like this. And what I have to do the next is define our is panel hidden property, and here I want to use my connected overlay, and I know that this connected overlay has property backdrop click, which is event emitter, means observable, and every time user clicks on the backdrop, it means that it should be hidden. So we map everything to false. So this is our isPanel hidden stream. And now the third stream, it's as I said earlier, it's gonna be the merge of these two streams. So I will put isPanel hidden here and isPanel visible inside the merge function, and here I will rename it and assign to show panel. And now if I save it and check what we have, it doesn't work. And I know actually what the issue, it's the same issue like it was before with this static property, so we have to resolve it before. And now we see our panel. When I click, it stays visible. When I click outside, it disappears. But there is another issue. When we click on our input, it's also considered as a click on the backdrop, but we want to see our panel when we click on the input. And what actually the issue here, the issue is that our overlay and backdrop kind of on the top of our input, or I will better show you with the example. So let's imagine that this is our overlay, and this is our panel, right? And let's say this is our input, and what we have now is our input is actually here, so behind this overlay, but we want to have something like here, so we have to have our input on the top of this backdrop, right? So I can prove it actually in the code, and if we add some z index, which is responsible for actually our layering order of our layers, and if I add this z index to our matform field, you will see that I'm clicking on this and our panel stays visible, which is behavior what we actually need. And that's we have to probably add some background to this input to see that it's really on the top, because it has transparent background, and that's why you can think that it's still below. But once we add background color white, you can see that it actually on the top of the overlay. And okay, that's good. And then we have to implement this in our code. So the first thing, I want to add the additional class, which is dropdown input active. And I want to attach this class only in the case if our panel is visible. So I will reuse this stream here in the matform field for matform field component. And in the styles, I have to I will add some background color for active input, and I will use the card, which is white, if I remember right. It should be white. And also in our how I call it functional styles for dropdown input active, we will add z index 100,000. I think it should be enough. And also I forgot to put this sign which tells that we have reference on the parent element. And now if I click on our input, I see that my panel is here. My if I click, it stays visible, and if I focus on the input, it also visible, and this is exactly what we wanted to have. The also thing I want to mention that you probably saw that we have this dark background, and if you don't need this dark background, you can use connected overlay backdrop class, and you can either assign your own class, or you can use the CDK overlay transparent backdrop to have this background transparent. It's pretty fine from Angular Material, but I will remove it because I want to have this dark background. And another thing, that we have this gap between our input and our panel, and it happens because every input in Angular Material has some reserved place for for errors messages or for some hints and so on, and it always has some padding at the bottom, and we can fix it. There are two ways how to fix it. The first one is to remove completely this padding, or we could use another property which I would like to show you, and this property is called connected overlay offset y, and I want to have here -20, so I want to push it a little bit up, and it would be better to have 21. And yeah, that looks much more better, and we have the behavior what I need, and this is actually pretty much it. That's some basic implementation. The only one thing I want to add here is some maybe logic and some controls into our panel, so we could have it more useful, and it will take some time to implement, but I will use some magic and we will jump into the ready implementation in just few seconds. But don't worry, the source code will be available on the GitHub and you can see all code there. So if you're ready for traveling in the time, let's get started. Great, so we have everything implemented, but before I show you result, I want to show what I changed in my code very briefly. And this is, I added form control. Then I added some slide toggles, which do some logic you will see in few minutes. And then I have the list of the states and there is ng4 where I'm just looping through my array of filtered states. And that was actually the logic, and everything I just copy pasted from tutorial for Material Autocomplete. There I grabbed all this logic, so these states and everything comes from there. I just replaced a little bit array, and this is a complete copy paste from the tutorial. And there is some helper functions which I extended a little bit, and that's pretty much it. This logic is very easy, so you will figure out very easy. And I have added some stylings for these new elements to have them more nicer a little bit, yeah. And also I added some additional modules from Angular Material. That's pretty much it, and now the result is like this. We have such a nice panel, and I can filter the cities. I can use this switcher to have it some case sensitive, so I have to use capital V to find the Vienna, and also I can disable search. This functionality probably is kind of useless, but it's just to show you what you can do with this. And this is pretty much it. And as I said earlier, you can find this code somewhere in the GitHub. I will leave the link in the video description. Okay, that was it for now. I hope this video was useful for you and you learned something new today. We actually covered only the half of the whole rich functionality which provides this overlay module, and I decided to create the second part where will be covered the rest of functionality, which includes such topics like dealing with the different scrolling strategies or positioning of our overlays and many more. So subscribe to my channel, it's gonna be very interesting. Thank you for your attention and see you in the future.